On this episode of the podcast, I'm going to talk about straws, Columbo, and ground level. Or is it the ground level? I don't know. We'll get into that. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Luke Who's Talking podcast with me, Luke. How you going out there? I hope you're doing well. Now, the first story, let's get into it now. A couple of weeks ago, when was it, last week? Week before? I don't know, the weeks are going past pretty quickly. That's what happens when you have a bit of a, unexciting life, I suppose. I don't know. Anyway, the weeks are going past fast. Now, myself and some friends, we went to a comedy debate. The city was having a bit of a comedy festival, so a week's worth of comedy. So me and some friends went to a comedy debate. Anyway, when we were finished, we're like, oh, we're hungry. It was like 10 o'clock. Let's go to McDonald's. So we went to McDonald's. Now, I don't know how long ago, but one of them, we have three. One of them has been rebuilt in the last, 6 months or so. I haven't been in there before. But actually, hilariously, I was there one night, or this particular night, and then like 2 days later, I was in there again. So I'd never been, and then all of a sudden I'd been there twice in like a week or whatever. Anyway, that's not the story. So me and a friend, we had ordered our stuff, and we were waiting in line for the lady to come out and be like, oh, number 114. And you go, yep, that's me. That's my, Big Mac or quarter pounder or whatever. Anywho, so we were there waiting for the lady to come and yell a number. And this guy, he had got his food, if you can call McDonald's food, it's, stuff. He then went, and they have the little areas where they have serviettes and straws. And the straws are always in like a nice stainless steel shiny box. It's like a tissue box sort of thing. Anyway, it's in a little cubby hole in the wall. Anyway, so the guy went to get a straw. Now, I wasn't facing him at the time. My back was towards this. Anyway, he went to grab a straw, I assume, and all of a sudden I hear this loud bang, and I turn around, and the box that the straws live in, the straw dispenser, is on the ground. There are straws all over the ground, and the guy's standing there looking slightly flustered, and he was like, oh, and he just picked up the straw box, put it on the counter, and buggered off. And so me and my friend were like, oh, and we had a bit of a chuckle, but I got to say, a poor young lady working there, young girl working there, had to come out, and she had to sweep up these darn straws. But the guy went to get a straw, and he must have grabbed the little lip at the bottom of the dispenser box, and he just pulled it. Well, he just big clip there. He just pulled it all out of the wall. And when she went bang on the ground and the straws went everywhere, he got a straw, so I'm sure he's happy about that. And he was like, oh, no. And then he buggered off. But it was just, come on, mate, just ease up. It was very bizarre. It was so bizarre. I'd never seen anything like it before. But yeah, so he must have grabbed simultaneously a straw and also like the lip thing on the bottom of the straw, little dispenser thing, and yeah, pulled it all out of the wall. Now, surely you go to pull your straw and you'd be like, oh, that's heavier than what a straw weighs, and you'd stop, wouldn't you, and realise, oh, I'm actually also pulling the straw dispenser out of the wall. But obviously that guy didn't take any notice, and he was like, it's all everybody's fault except mine, and then like huffed off with his straw. So, yeah, the things you see at McDonald's, how exciting. I'm back now. You wouldn't know this, but I just went and put a couple of pies in the oven. Now, I wonder if having a pie in the oven is better than having a bun in the oven. What do you reckon, Shannon? Hey? Whoa. Inside jokes. Love them. But it's not really an inside joke. Anyway, whatever. Now, Columbo. Is Columbo TV's best detective? I reckon he could be, because on one of the channels here, there's been reruns of Columbo, Magnum PI, and also Kojak. Now, Columbo, I think currently Kojak might be my favourite. I do watch these shows. I think they're just interesting to watch because of, you know, the culture and things of them. You know, these shows from the 70s and the Magnum, of course, from the 1980s. So it's just, I like watching the old stuff. Anywho, you know, I'm about 85 in, you know, a 25-year-old's body. So there you go. Anyway, now, Columbo. Is he TV's best detective? Now, the other night, the crime, when it ended, me and my mum were like, how good was that? We were like, oh, what a guy. What a detective. Now, this is what happened. So, what went down was the killer murdered I think it was their uncle, and stole 2 paintings, okay? So as the story, and he gave these paintings to an accomplice. So as the story progressed, you know, Columbo did his thing, and he went. Well, the killer didn't have the paintings because he gave them to his accomplice. So he went to his accomplice, got these paintings, killed his accomplice. And then that particular day, he went back to his house. It was late at night, and Columbo was there. And Columbo was like, oh, what have you got in your bag? Now, this is important to remember. He's like, well, what have you got in your bag? And the guy's like, oh, I've got some paintings. I've been asked to evaluate them. So what Columbo did is he put his hand in this guy's bag or folder that he had these paintings in to pull them out, to like, oh, show me. And the guy was like, oh, no. It's late. I have to, you know, want to get to bed, blah, blah, blah. Now, that's important to remember, that exchange about these paintings. So, you know, the story progressed, and it was discovered that the murderer wasn't going to inherit anything from his uncle. His uncle's ex-wife was going to get all the inheritance, or the particular said uncle was like an art collector or whatever, so he had all his paintings. So they were all going to go to the ex-wife. So the story progressed a bit more, and the killer convinced the ex-wife's attorney that the police, not Columbo, but the police should search her house because they're not going to find anything. Henceforth, she's going to be innocent. It's going to clear up. So that was fine. Now, the killer said, I don't want Columbo to come to the house whilst it's being searched. I want him out of the picture because he's a pest, right? Anyway, so that was okay. So they went to the house. They started to, the killer, the attorney, and the ex-wife, they were just having a chat. And the killer was like, oh, I've spilt something on me lairish 1970s tie. He then went and he had smuggled the paintings into the house. He hid the paintings, the stolen paintings, right, in a cupboard. So we then went back, the police turned up, they started searching, and then Columbo turned up. Columbo then, he was inside the house, and they're like, oh, look what, and there was a generic cop. He's like, oh, look what we found. So they come out with the paintings that had been stolen from the house. I hope I'm not confusing anybody by what's going on here. I hope I'm explaining this well enough. So that was fine. So the killer was like, oh, ex-wife, how could you? Whoa, you know, scandalous. And Columbo was like, he didn't really say much. And what they started to do was search prints. He's like, right, let's get some prints off of these paintings. So they're doing fingerprints. And the killer's like, well, why are you doing that for? And Columbo said, Columbo said, we're checking for fingerprints. You know. And the killer's like, well, you're going to find all my fingerprints on there because I told you that I had helped, I've handled these paintings before. I helped Uncle unwrap them. I did this, I did that. And Columbo said, now this is the juice. This is where the crime was cracked. This is the best bit. Now, Columbo said, we're not looking for your fingerprints on the paintings. We're looking for my fingerprints on the paintings. And the killer was like, because he's a killer, And Columbo said, so remember that time I was at your house and you turned up with those 2 paintings that you had that you said you were evaluating for somebody? Columbo said, well, I touched them because he put his hand in the guy's bag to pull the paintings out. So Columbo had touched the paintings. So Columbo said, well, if my fingerprints are on these paintings, surely, said ex-wife couldn't have stolen them. And, you did. And I was like, whoa, what a way to crack this case. What a way to do it. And the killer was like, oh, you touched them just now. Anyway, now, Columbo all through had his hands in his pockets, right? Anyway, but he pulled his hands out and he had gloves on to sort of be like, well, I couldn't have touched these paintings because I've had gloves on this whole time. The only way I could have touched them is if they were in your bag when I was at your house the other night. Boom! Nicked. And I thought I was excited. I thought that's a great way. That's just a great solving of the crime. Although that was genius. I thought it was genius. Absolutely genius. I think Columbo solving the crime, and then if you had District Attorney Jack McCoy from Law and Order prosecuting the murderer, what a combo that would be. Absolute combo. That was a long story. Now to my last story. This is going to be a long episode. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I was in the state's capital. I'll try and rush through this. Anyway, I was in the state's capital and we're in the car park and I got into the lift and pushed, there were some other people got into the lift too, and I pushed, a little bit older, and I pushed the G button for ground level. Okay? Pretty self-explanatory. And there was the guy in the lift, he's like, why have you pushed the G? And I'm like, it's for ground, mate. He's like, yeah, but it's level whatever. I was like, no, G on the button is for ground level. And the other people with him were like, yeah, like G's ground level. So I've sort of had to explain that G on the buttons for ground level with this guy, he just couldn't quite get it. But to be fair, there were other numbers and things on the panel with all the buttons, but the button, on the button, it had a big G on it, pushed G for ground level, takes you down to ground level. So, but the guy, see, the car park's like split. So you have one level, so it might be level 1, then up to ramps level 2. So, for example, so ground level would be ground, and then the next little bit is like level 1, so maybe it had like a 1 above the G. But then I pushed G for ground, and he was like, why pushing, why? He was questioning why I pushed G, and like G for ground, but going to the bottom. It is ground level. So that was interesting and a little bit bizarre. And there was other people like, yeah, it's ground level. So I had to sort of explain to this guy, it's ground level. We're going to the bottom. We're not going to like level 1 or anything. It's G, it's ground. That was, that was interesting for sure. A little bit odd. Well, everybody, that is it for this episode of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. You can tweet me, of course, L_who's talking on the Twitters or on Facebooks, and you can email me. What's the password? What do you call it? Email? I think it's Luke who's talking pod@gmail.com. Now, a little bit of a tease. This is a possibility. It's not a sure thing, but next episode, in the last week or so, there was a bit of an event. Well, not really an event, but anyway, something happened in my personal life, and I think next episode, which will be not next Friday, but the one after, I may talk about it. I was decided not to this week because I think I've sort of progressed currently. This is Monday. Yes, of course, you're listening to this on Friday, but still, I'm being maybe a little bit raw about the situation, so I don't want to get too wound up. Anyway, so that's a possibility for next episode. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this one. Share it around, or don't. I'm not the boss of you. And I'll catch you next time.